Good morning.
Good morning.
Good, there we go. It is the morning. Hey, we are excited. If you got to come into church today, especially if you came in on the Martinson side, you saw that there is a crew in town called Brick Mob who's painting just a really neat mural on the side of our building. And the really neat process of this building has been, we believe in restoring and revitalizing lives in the name of Jesus, right? It's in the middle of this neighborhood. But what's been cool is that God has given us an opportunity to take an abandoned building, a left-alone building that's stood there for about 4 years, unoccupied, in a neighborhood that really continues to need more and more things brought to it, and we've been able to just bring new life to it. It was, if you love the color mustard yellow kind of stuff, brick, then you would have loved it before we painted it gray, okay? So maybe you're like, you ruined the building. If that's you, just don't let us know, okay? We want to believe that we revitalized it and just changed it, made it awesome. So we are super excited about this building. And over the next month, we're going to be transitioning as a church, where we're going to take a move from this physical location at Franklin Elementary, and we're going to be moving over into that building. And so first of all, it's a really exciting time for us as a district church, because this will be our third consistent location. We started at Milk Float, and then we'll be moving. Then we moved here to Franklin, and we've been here for about a year and a half. And then over the next month, we'll be moving over into this building. And so with anything exciting, with any change that takes place, it's always a little bit, there's a few things that'll you'll kind of stub your toe a little bit. And so for the next month, if we just be flexible and adaptable with us, we want to move over as a church family, and then we're going to have this big grand opening for the community on September 8th, where we're just going to invite the whole community in and continue to take steps forward as the district church. So we're super excited about that. We're not just excited to do that for you, we're excited to do that with you. So there's going to be new ways for you to participate with us as a church body, because when you do something new, you need everyone to be involved. And so we're gonna be all hands on deck, and there's just going to be some neat opportunities to get really involved with us over the next month. We'll clue you into those as we get closer and closer to it. Today we're continuing in our series on Proverbs, just basically foolproof in your life. And over the last 2 weeks, Brady has taught on how to receive constructive criticism, on how to be able to take in criticism and use it well. And then last week he talked about anger. Many of you left angry, so he must not have done a great job. That's a good joke? No? Okay. Store those away, okay? Put those in the back of my joke book, all right? Today, we're going to talk about what does it look like to actually search for wisdom and how do you actually get it. So let me ask you this question. It's the same question that was posed to Solomon. The guy who wrote this book, his name is Solomon, it's the same question that was posed to him, okay? He had this decision to make. He could either have a long life, victory over his enemies, and incredible riches. Those three things. A long life, victory over his enemies, and incredible riches, or he could have wisdom. And he gets to ask God for either these three things over here or this thing over here. And he ends up making the choice to say, God, I just want you to give me wisdom. Can I just be honest? If I had these three things over here, long life, victory over my enemies, and riches, I'd probably go this way. Actually, I see a ton of our culture say this, right? Who's ever heard this? If I only could win the lottery. We're all friends here. If we're not friends, you'll either be a family member after this or you'll never come back, right? If you ever thought or believed that, you might be a fool. I've thought that, right? I thought the one thing that will fix my life is money. Anybody want to amen that? No? Okay. All right, it's getting awkward. Listen, I've believed that in my life. I believed that there's a silver bullet that will fix the things that are going on. I've believed that here's how foolish I am, even relationally, if Nicole and I are in an argument, I believe that if she'll see things my way, then it'll be fine. Every guy. We might have a room of fools, okay? When we believe that there's a silver bullet that will fix it, we're almost always wrong. We're buying into a foolish belief system that actually doesn't exist and doesn't move us forward in life. And Solomon posed with the question, long life, victory over my enemies, or riches, and riches versus just give me wisdom. Solomon chooses wisdom. Here's why. He was leading God's people. And he said, God, I want to lead your people with your wisdom. I don't want to just be a king over here that says, I just want what's best for me. I want to lead your people well. And as good as David was as king, right? We know David, he defeated Goliath, and he's this warrior in battle. But did you know that David really, as a king, he was always at war with some other army? Always at war, always in strife. There was always something going on. Solomon takes over as king. Solomon is David's son. And as Solomon is leading, he leads Israel into a time of peace and prosperity. Solomon was this wise king. So we get the book of Proverbs from a very interesting story, right? And if you don't know this is why the Bible's so crazy, so interesting. But Solomon is the son of David and Bathsheba. David and Bathsheba get together, if you remember. David looks out over the rooftops and he sees Bathsheba bathing. Bathsheba was bathing specifically because her menstrual cycle had ended in Jerusalem. In the Israelite nation, you would have specific bathing rituals after that period of time was over. And David would know this, and he's looking out over and he sees her bathing. And instead of walking away like a wise man would do, he foolishly looks and says, hey, bring her over to me. He sleeps with her, impregnates her, and she is married to a guy named Uriah. I might have to do handheld or something closer. So David has done this awful thing and sends away for her husband. And as she goes and as Uriah comes home from battle upon David's wishes, he comes home and David says, Uriah, hey, you need to go and be with your wife because hopefully we can make all these things straight if you'll sleep with your wife. That's what David's thinking. And so he says, why don't you go and just spend the night with your wife tonight? And Uriah is a man of nobleness. He says, I'm not going to go and spend the night with the pleasures of my wife while my men are out in the middle of battle. And so he sleeps on David's porch. And David tries again to get Uriah to go spend that time with his wife. And instead, Uriah says, no, I'm going to sleep on my porch, or I'm going to sleep on your porch. And he waits there as the battle is continuing to go on. And so David's like, I got to go to plan B. And so he sends Uriah back to battle, and he gives Uriah a sealed note, says, give this to your commanding officer when you get to the field. And the commanding officer opens it up, sees it, says, send Uriah and his men to the front of the line, and then the rest of your men pull back. And Uriah and his men are slaughtered. David thinks that he's gotten over it and that no one will know about this, but of course God knows, and he sends a messenger to David and he says, hey, you've sinned. And David says, I know that I've sinned. And out of all of this, David brings on Bathsheba to be his wife, and out of all of this mess and all of this disgusting stuff that's going on, this foolish stuff that's going on, God uses his mercy and his grace to bring us a man named Solomon. God does this over and over in people's lives, if you haven't recognized this. He's done it over and over in my life, did it over and over in David's life, that he doesn't need the most righteous person to do righteous things. That even when we do things and we intend them for evil, God uses them for good because he's good. That's something that we have to get squared away and understand about who God is and what God does. So that's just a little bit of background for you from where Solomon comes from. Solomon didn't grow up to be the wisest person ever because he came from a person that passed on wisdom like crazy. Was there wisdom that was passed on? Sure. But he gained wisdom because he asked God, I want wisdom more than I'm seeking riches, more than I'm seeking the peace from my enemies, and more than I'm seeking that long life. I want wisdom. He pursued wisdom, and that is critical for us today. If there's one thing that I think is my job today, it is to urge you to always seek wisdom. To not fall for the silver bullet that you think will fix everything, but to say wisdom is what I'm after. It'll mean you make decisions that are a little bit countercultural. It'll mean, like Brady said, that you will actually receive criticism. You won't just put up a shield to it. It'll mean that when you get angry, you will learn to overcome and control your emotions, not let your emotions control you. You'll go the way of the wise. So really quickly, a proverb. Brady's done this so well. A proverb is a clear and concise statement about how life generally works. It is a clear and concise statement about how life generally works. But I want to make sure you understand this. Proverbs are not promises. Okay? I'm going to I love trying to teach some of the external things about the Bible to you so that when you approach a book, you approach it in the right way. First of all, let me just say this. If you're new to the Bible, or you're just beginning into the Bible, or you're getting back into the Bible after a long period of time, let me tell you how the Bible works. The Bible is not just one book. It used to be read scroll by scroll by scroll. Every book of the Bible was in a scroll. So the Bible is not one book from beginning, middle, and end. The Bible is actually a library of 66 books. Every time you read a book of the Bible, you have to ask yourself, which book is this written to? Who wrote this book? Who'd they write it to? What was going on in this period of time? Because if I don't understand those things, I'm going to make Proverbs something that's just a clear statement that generally happens in life, and I'm going to turn it into a promise. And that's not the way in which it was originally written. It's 66 books in a library. And if we don't approach it right, we're going to be off base in what we believe. And if what we believe about God is not accurate, we have to ask ourselves, who are we worshiping? So it's so important that we put what we read in the Bible in context. That context really is king, and it's super important that we know and understand it from that point. Let me point out to you what I mean about Proverbs not being promises. It's something like this. Proverbs 3:1-2 says this: "My son, do not forget my teaching, for length of days and years of life and peace will add to you." Right? So if I take that, I instead of that just being a general life statement, I'm like, you know what? That's a promise. If I will not forget his teaching, then I will live long days and I'll have a long life and there will be peace all around me. But you ever follow God and listen to him and you've done the things that he's called you to do and you find yourself still in turmoil? Like, generally, if you follow his ways, you will find peace, and you'll find this peace that surpasses understanding, and you'll be in a good mode of life. But it's not a guarantee that if you do this, this will happen. It's just a general rule and proverb to us to say, hey, follow these things. Another way we can mess up Proverbs is we take Proverbs 10:3. The Lord does not let the righteous go hungry. If we turn that into a promise, then what about my Christian brothers and sisters who are today starving to death? Who are doing the things that God has called them to do, and they're gathering together, and they're growing together, but they are starving, and they don't know where their next meal is going to come from, but they are righteous, right? The Lord does not let the righteous go hungry, though. Well, we could look down on them and say, well, they're just not being righteous enough, and I would say that is bonkers. Proverbs is not promises. These are concise, clear statements about how life generally works. Or you could even go to Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. But I've met parents who have brought their kids up to grow and love Jesus, and they've brought them up in the church, and then once they became adults, the kids, they decided to go their own way and let go of everything their parents taught them. Doesn't happen every time, but sometimes it does happen. That's because Proverbs are not promises. They're statements about how life generally works. And that's important as we read through this book, because Solomon sets up this book like this. He's getting to the end of his life, and he's going to write a book to his sons, and he wants them to know, here's how to live your life in a wise way. And so he just starts writing down everything he can think of that's just wise. And there are a few passages that are very topical, right? There's like Proverbs 31, which is about a noble woman and what it looks like for real womanhood that's underneath God. Like that whole chapter is just about what it looks like to be a godly woman, the characteristics and attributes. There's some that are specifically about folly, but other than that, it's like, man, there's things about finances, and there's things about discipline, and there's things about money, and there's things about relationships and friendships, and you go on and on. They're just it's just like intermittent. Like there's one thing about a relationship, and there's another thing about finances, and there's another thing about discipline. There's not any kind of order to it, because it's Solomon just writing out these sayings that are wise for us to grab hold of. So, let me just give you these tips real quick while you're reading the book of Proverbs. Here's my 2 tips for you. First, read a chapter of Proverbs and then pull out what applies to you right now. So, read through it and then ask, in this chapter, what's one thing that really sticks out to me? What's one proverb that really sticks out to me that I could use right now, that I could apply very quickly right now? Let me take that and run with it. That's how I would suggest that you read Proverbs. The other thing is this. There are 31 chapters in Proverbs, and typically there are 31 days in a month. So whatever day of the month corresponds with that proverb, read that proverb and do it every month. Just take that proverb and apply it to that day. And then ask yourself each day, what applies to me right now? Guess what? If you miss today, don't do today's number tomorrow, do tomorrow's number tomorrow, right? You're always caught up. You're never behind when it comes to Proverbs in the Bible. Which proverb are you in? No, let's see, it's the 21st proverb. Oh, perfect. You can always say you're up on your quiet time. All right? But just approach Proverbs that way. It makes it easier for you to go through. It's going to help you actually articulate what is wisdom. Because here's the thing. At the end of the book of Proverbs, you could have Proverbs right in front of you. You've got 31 chapters full of the wisest man who's ever lived in the name of Solomon, who's laid out wisdom for you. And if you never read it, how can you say you're ever pursuing it? Pursue it. Wrestle with it. You may read a proverb and say, I don't even know what that means. Well, keep digging into it, because in it is wisdom, and in it is what God holds dear to us. While you're reading it, just ask these 3 questions. First, ask this. What applies to me right now, like I just said? What applies to me right now? Make Proverbs topical. But then ask this question. Have I seen this in others? Have I seen this in others? Have I seen this in any of my relationships? And then the third one is, finally with this, have I seen this in myself? When it talks about being a fool, have I seen this in others? And you're like, oh yeah, I've seen fools. But ask it of yourself. Have I seen this in me? Am I patient? Am I slowing down, or am I speeding up in life? Am I forcing things? With my finances, am I going deep into debt because I think I need more? What does Proverbs say about that? A lot. So what do you do with that? Jump into it and ask those questions as you read through it. And understand this when it comes to wisdom, that I think is so, so important. I've met a lot of people who are incredibly intelligent. Right? They have incredibly high IQs. Their IQ doubles or triples mine. I don't even know if that's possible, but if it is, I've met people like that, right? You're laughing because you're like, yeah, everybody's smarter than you, right? I've met some just genius level people, but some of those people don't have any what we would call street smarts. And I would call it EQ, emotional intelligence, over here. I've met incredibly intelligent people over here who could think the world around with their minds, but they have no emotional intelligence over here. They don't know how to articulate it. They don't know the tone to communicate it. They don't know how to relate to people. And so they end up struggling in life because they have all of this and none of this. And then I met people who are emotionally intelligent, but they don't know a lick about how the world works and how they should go about their lives. So I would say this, that Brady's definition that he's brought forward for us, that wisdom, the intelligence here, is the right application of knowledge. It's not just knowledge, it's the right application of it. It's, I know what it is. And sometimes I'll meet people who, especially like with conflict resolution, here's a weird thing, I love conflict resolution. I can nerd out on some conflict resolution. Because that is a place in which some of your best relationships get established. If you can't have a conflict with your friend in which you tell them the truth and you guys make peace about it, and you don't have a friendship. You just have a bunch of yes people in your life. If you have no conflict around, you're not able to speak the truth, you're not able to get into it, then you really don't have anything that's cement. You just have a ton of ground that's going to move on you. And so learning to take what you know and apply it rightly with the right tone is super important. Let me tell you what I'm talking about, right? This week, or last week, it was a really stressful Sunday. Okay, sometimes I just have these really stressful Sundays. One of them was last week. Nicole wakes up with a migraine, and that means I'm going to go get the kids and bring them to church. and I have a million things that I'm thinking about on Sunday mornings, and then add on, I'm going to be, this will sound weird, but I'm going to be a full-time dad at the same time, be a full-time pastor. I'm admitting to be a bad dad, okay? So I go get the kids, I bring them over, I'm stressed, and I'm just trying to get through the day, and then I have some basketball games afternoon I didn't want to skip out on, so I was being pretty selfish, and I went and played those games while Nicole took care of Calvin, and then we had a backyard barbecue last Sunday evening, and I had the girls with me, and Debbie and Brianna, and so it was just a crazy kind of day, and Nicole was just out, just not feeling very well. So that night I get home and I am like just exhausted and ready to go to bed, and in my knowledge I'm thinking this was a really hard day, I should just decompress and just process with my wife and just tell her this was hard, and I should have said this, hey babe, how are you feeling tonight? And what came out was a fool, and I said, hey babe, do you think you need to toughen up? Yikes. And Nicole, okay, lovingly, graciously, but internally was probably thinking, how dare you, and other adjectives. But we end up having this conversation where what's in my head doesn't come out of my mouth, and I don't put those two things together, and I end up being a fool in the conversation. Because I didn't take the knowledge that I had and apply it rightly. I used it in self-centered ways, I used it for me, I used it against someone, and that hurt, right? That is a foolish way to go about life. So I have to apply rightly the knowledge that I have. That is what wisdom is. So there's 3 steps that I just want to share with you today when it actually comes to applying knowledge and what wisdom really, really looks like. The first one is this: fear the Lord. Fear the Lord. We don't like the word fear in our culture because it's scary. Right? Literally, fear is scary. We don't like thinking about God as someone we should fear, because we think that's completely wrong. We know of Him. Our Christian word for God is Father, and so that's a relational word. So when you say fear, you're like, I don't fear anybody. Like, if I'm going to have a good relationship with someone, how am I ever going to fear them? But I would say this: Proverbs 1:7 makes it abundantly clear to us, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. God. And is always spurning God, is always projecting God, is always saying, I don't need God. It's kind of like a fool is basically someone who spits into the wind with all their force and all their might, but that spit just comes right back into their face. A fool, only a fool, would actually mess with the God of the universe that really, literally exists. See, God is an all-consuming fire of righteousness. He is all-powerful and all-consuming, and there's nothing that's above Him or beside Him. There's no contemporary to Him. He is completely and wholly set apart from us, never made a mistake, always perfect, huge, vast, created everything that you and I know, can see, hear, and touch. Everything on your body is an invention from Him. This whole world is small to Him, but huge to you. The universe, He scoffs at because He's just so much bigger than all of it. Everything was out of His brain, out of His idea. He spoke you into motion. He is this huge, enormous, all-consuming fire of righteousness. But He's also full of grace and mercy and forgiveness. He's two sides of the same coin, and sometimes we only get to know one side of the coin that is God, and we leave the other side completely untouched or uncovered. We don't get to know that side of Him. And many of us, when we're brought up in churches to believe, well, fear of God means a reverent awe of God. And I would say that if you go back and you actually read what the word fear the Lord means in the book of Proverbs, it means like, I'm scared. Not like reverent church awe. Like we turn fear into like some church reverent word. It's not reverent awe. It's like, I don't know what this is, and I don't know how to do anything with it. I'm terrified of what God might do to me. It is terrifying. It's why the shepherds, when the angel shows up, what do they do? They're petrified. They're terrified to be in his presence. Mount of Transfiguration, they see the glory. Like, you understand that Jesus shows up in human skin, and we can see him with our eyes, but in his heavenly glory, it's so bright and glorious and wonderful. Like, we can't even make it out with our own eyes. We just get behind it because we don't know exactly what we're dealing with. God is to be feared because that's the beginning of wisdom. It's kind of like electricity, right? Electricity is a good thing. We would all agree. Because when I flip the switch and the light turns on, I like that. And when the AC keeps running, that is run on electricity, I like that and I enjoy that. So electricity is a good thing. But if you've met an electrician worth their salt, Dan Barone, then you know that an electrician has a healthy fear of electricity. It's a good thing. It provides us many of our conveniences today. It's one of the greatest inventions ever known to man. But we know and understand that we have to have a healthy fear of electricity because electricity can, in a moment, kill us. There's a relatability to us with that. When you notice someone who goes out and they jump on a roller coaster, right? Do you understand that doesn't make any sense because they're looking at something that could literally just kill them? I don't want to be a downer here, but just one thing goes wrong on a roller coaster and that thing doesn't come off, or it doesn't stay on the tracks, it comes off, and everybody dies, right? But we get on it because we're looking for the joyride, but we also are under its power for about a minute. We see the guys who do the big surf competitions, right? These huge waves, they surf down. They do it because they enjoy it and they find such life in it. But there's a healthy fear and understanding that if this wave hits right and I hit wrong, then I may not come back up. And the mountain climbers who climb to the peaks of Everest every year, they don't approach it with any kind of cockiness or arrogance. They approach it with a healthy fear, even though they're going to accomplish something great. So to say that to have no fear in your life of anything is the way to go, I would say you don't do that with most of them more fulfilling things in your life. Even the idea of taking risk is you see the good in it, but you have a healthy fear of it. Fear is actually something that keeps us safe. Fear is something that helps us to reason with what is the best option or decision for us. And so the beginning of wisdom starts with a healthy fear of the Lord. So I ask you, just as we talk about that, do you have a fear of the Lord? Or is your opinion of the Lord, he's just a good buddy. He's a consultant. He's a friend. He's just my companion. Jesus just with me on the side. He's just sitting in the front seat of the car just talking to me all the time. And he and I just have a really, just pretty lazy friendship. But he's just good with everything that I do. If that is Jesus to you, can I just tell you real quick, you're not worshiping Jesus. You've made an imaginary friend and called him Jesus. Because Jesus doesn't sit in the front seat. He drives the car. And that starts with our understanding of a fear of the Lord is a healthy thing for us, and it's the beginning of wisdom. The fear of the Lord is where something called humility is established and carved out in our character. Without a fear of the Lord, you are prideful. You are to be feared. God, no. So the beginning of wisdom begins with the fear of the Lord. Because when I don't fear the Lord, I'll never accept his grace and mercy. I'll just presume it. And that's an unhealthy place for us to be in our walk with the Lord. You realize this? That when we don't have a healthy fear of the Lord, we act like it cost Jesus nothing to die on the cross. We act like it cost God nothing for Jesus to go to the cross and to be crucified for our sins and transgressions. Because we don't understand that that is what we deserve when we don't have a healthy fear of the Lord. If we don't fear him, why would we ever accept grace and mercy from him? And he's not scary. He's not to be feared, so grace and mercy are irrelevant. But with a healthy fear, we can actually meet him at the cross. And check out Jesus' words. Matthew 10:28 says this. And do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather, fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Where is your fear? Let me ask you even a bigger question. Where is your greatest fear? If you have none, let me call you to repentance, to stand in front of this holy, unrelenting, all-consuming, righteous fire. This God who is bigger than the universe and who you can understand partially, and he gives you a glimpse of who he is, and he shows you through his word, but ultimately, you don't know his next move. You don't know what he is about to do. You don't know what he is up to all the time. But you know that he wants to be with you. Wisdom begins with a fear of the Lord. And when I fear the Lord, I do the second thing, which is I follow the Lord. Follow the Lord. Proverbs 3:5-7 says this: trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. If there's a verse to chew on this week, chew on this. Be wise not in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. That is, if you are wise in your own eyes, the way to circumvent that and to come back around that is to fear the Lord, because it again is the beginning of wisdom. If I truly want to be a wise person, then I won't go through life thinking that I know best, because I know that only God knows best. I'll approach it with humility. Very simply, like Proverbs 3 says, I will not lean on my own understanding. And let's quickly stop and talk about what we do when we lean on our own understanding. Like it's easy for us, for me and Nicole and our family, to lean on our own understanding of finances, to lean on our own understanding of a career. It's easy for us in this room and for us in culture to lean on our own understanding of everything that goes on in life. To just say, I understand it this way and I lean on that this way. Our culture says to lean on your own understanding for your finances, for your careers, for your families, for your past, for your future. It says lean on your own understanding for your sexuality, for your relationships. And God says don't lean on your own understanding of those things. Lean on me. Don't define who you are. That's not your job. And our culture is so hell-bent on defining ourselves the way we want to be defined and live our lives our own way that we've forgotten that God ultimately defines who we are. And that definition doesn't come from some unique expression of who we are. It comes from the fact that we've been redeemed through the cross. And so we don't have to prove who we are anymore. We get to be who we've been created to be through Jesus on the cross. And we only understand that if we will stop leaning on our own understanding. And we will say, God, I start because I fear you, and because of that I follow you, and when I follow you, I stop leaning on me so much, and I wholly and 100% begin leaning on you. I turn my back to the things of the world, and I follow the understanding that God has placed in me and around me. So I fear the Lord and I begin to follow the Lord. This is the way of wisdom. And if you read Proverbs, you're going to begin to understand that the characteristics that Solomon writes about are going to describe the characteristics and attributes of Jesus. Until you get to 31, that's about a woman, okay? Everything else, it's going to describe the characteristics of Jesus. It's going to describe the way in which he lived his life and how he made decisions and what he put priority on and what he put emphasis on. It's going to describe who he was. And that is who you end up following at the end of the day. And the third thing, last but not least, is to understand wisdom and to take steps towards it, we make attaining wisdom a priority. We make attaining wisdom a priority. Proverbs 2:4-5 says this: if you seek it like silver, if you seek it like you seek money. Man, this part for me, when I read it this week, this part really stuck out. Because I began to ask myself, what do I really search most in life? What am I searching most for in life? What am I looking for? And what am I starving for? And what am I hungry for? For Solomon, it was wisdom. Because again, remember at the beginning, he wasn't looking for a longer life and more riches and freedom from his enemies. He was just looking for wisdom. And he said, God, I want wisdom. And I'm searching for wisdom. And I want it every day and every way and all the time. And then I asked myself, what would my answer to those questions be? What would I really be searching for in my heart of hearts? Could I say that I'd be searching for wisdom? Defined by my relationship with God, or am I searching for something or anything else? He says, if you seek it like silver and search for it as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. In his future generations, I'm searching for wisdom like I'm searching for hidden treasure, and I'm putting the greatest value on being a wise person. And God graciously grants it to him and gives him that wisdom. So my question is, are we searching for wisdom like we search for money? Like we search for meaning? Like we search for relationships? Like we search for the silver bullet? Or are we still looking for the quick fix that we think will just take care of every one of our problems and just take it all away from us? Or are we going to bear down and say, God, grant us wisdom? And not only God grant us wisdom and say, well, God, I'll just pray for wisdom. I'll just pray for wisdom. I'll just pray over and over and over again that God will just give me wisdom. And God's like, you can pray all you want. I've given you wisdom. Read Proverbs. Follow my son. Search for it. Come after it. Because when you come after wisdom, I think it's so incredibly interesting that the first thing you run into is an understanding of the fear of the Lord. Because I promise you this, when you search for wisdom, God will knock you off your perch. God will knock you off the perch that you've built for yourself when you search for wisdom. Because wisdom is saying, I'm not most important, he is. He's saying that my understanding isn't the best understanding, that his is. That relationships in life that are not defined by him are not the best. They need to have him at the center. And I need to stop doing things my own way and in my own time and in my own understanding. And I need to just submit and surrender and say, God, I am turning to you to say, completely take over. That's wisdom. Wisdom is understanding who you are in light of who he is. Solomon grasped that really clearly. It's what he specifically asked for. My hope and prayer is that would be the same thing for you, that in your life today, right now, you begin asking God, I need your wisdom. And as you begin searching for that wisdom, that he would lead you to the fear of the Lord, which would lead you to following him and continue on this search for what wisdom really looks like. My goal is to light a fire under you, that wisdom would be what you search for. It'd be what you would pursue. That at the end of the day, all together as one church, we would be a group of people that says that what we're after and who we're going to be defined by is a people that fears him, follows him, and searches for his wisdom. And as the rest of the world searches for the long life and the crazy treasures and the power over their enemies, what we're searching for is we're going in the opposite direction of the current, and we're just simply asking God for more wisdom. more humility, more of him, and less of us. That's where wisdom begins. Let's pray. Father God, we praise you and thank you for your grace. Father, you are patient with us, and graceful with us, and true to us, so consistent with us. Father, as we read about Solomon and his request, that he says, man, God, I want you to give me and grant me your wisdom. That he didn't look for the silver bullet that was going to fix everything. He wanted just your wisdom. He didn't want to lean on his own understanding. He wanted to start with you, and then it just strikes me, God, that as he is writing down what is wise in life, he says the beginning of wisdom, the wisest man who ever lived. What does this even mean? That the wisest man who ever lived says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Father, I pray that we would believe that.